Kia ora koutou te katoa. E na mana, e na rau, e na iwi, e na waka, e na whanau, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Richard Handley. My iwi is Pakeha, my marae is Pakaraka, my river is Waitotara, my manga is Taranaki. Kia ora tātou. Carl, Chief Commissioner, Kathy, Colleen, members of the Commission, thank you for the opportunity of coming and talking to you this morning. I'd like to acknowledge several people of our WITT iwi here today. Our Member of Council, Jackie Broughton's with us. My friend and colleague, Te Nauru Winera. My tumu paiarehi, who keeps me on the track and gives me a hiding from time to time when I move away. And Ahorangi, Dr. Huirangi Waikiripuru. Today we're talking about building pathways for the future. And we've heard from Manaka and Kathy the work within the strengthening of the Maori economy and the Maori Renaissance, and I acknowledge and applaud those, but today I'm unashamedly going to be talking to you about education. This is a somewhat Pākehā view, but nevertheless I think it's one that springs from our responsibilities at your local polytechnic. We often, I think, hear of people who say they moved themselves and their family from poverty through education. We hear about education and the role it has in transforming people, communities, and our economies. And I firmly believe that, and that's the position I'm going to take today. Education springs from strong families, safe children, and early learning opportunities, encouragement into education, and encouragement into lifelong learning. Education needs to embrace the mana of our communities. So the first point I would like to reinforce, and we've heard it before, is strong families must support lifelong learning. I just want to tell you a story that came out of some research at Auckland University, and it's probably about 5 years old now, and some of you may have heard me talk about this, but it did some research on what is happening in the modern New Zealand economy, and it found that of the jobs being created, these are new jobs, of the new jobs being created in the New Zealand economy, 63% of them required a level of tertiary education. Now, you would not be surprised to hear me make a strong ploy for the role and value of tertiary education. But nevertheless, if you wish for your families and your children and communities to participate and contribute in a modern economy, you must take a strong view about education and encourage them to take those opportunities and become educated. Remember also, we're now in a global economy, and more while we talk about Taranaki, we're actually, in a sense, talking about the world. Colleen referred to this earlier, but in terms of my children, I have three children. One is married to a Greek, one is married to an Englishman, and one's married to an Irishman. So there's a whole joke there, isn't there? Two of them live overseas. Two of my makapuna live overseas. And this is what's kind of happening in our world. And we have to understand that as we grow as individuals and communities, we have to acknowledge that there are pressures on us to equip ourselves and skill ourselves for the modern economy, which is a global economy. I want to talk to you for a minute about WITT. WITT's key responsibilities are to our communities. We keep saying that all the time, and there are some things that we don't do so well, but I firmly believe that WITT can assist in the development of our people and our communities. If we look at what's happening within our student cohort at WITT, the students who identify as Maori have doubled over the last 4 years, I think, and my colleague Te Nauru needs to take a lot of the credit for that. Now, while at one level that's a very good contribution, I think, to Maori learning within Taranaki, we need to hold them into WITT for a little longer and get them involved in general education. Now, if you walked around WITT's campus, you wouldn't get the impression that 40% of our students at WITT are Maori. But you will see some changes in the future as we gradually build a face of WITT that reflects much more positively the fact that 40% of our students are Maori. We also have a very strong relationship with Te Reo Taranaki Trust, who conduct a number of language revitalisation programs in partnership with WITT. And I just want to mention the tertiary education strategy which drives us, and you've heard quite a lot of that in recent times around the education of our Maori communities. There are two very key drivers in the Tertiary Education Commission strategy: more Maori in tertiary education and closing the gaps, that old phrase that that comes back from the past, closing the gaps in educational success between Maori and non-Maori. And I'd have to say we're proud that that gap is much less here than it is in other places. Just want to talk for a moment about a reasonably recent development at WITT, which is the development of our Rotaki Māori, which is a strategy for the enhancement and further development of our Maori students. The Rotaki particularly looks at how we develop an environment within which our Maori students can thrive. It says all students, well, it says a lot of things. I'd just like to highlight a few things. All students are provided with an educational experience with support and positive reinforcement that recognises their cultural background and its relationship with Taranaki mana whenua heritage and status as it relates to the educational and vocational goals identified in programs, enabling them to succeed in a journey of achievement in their study. And the particular drivers sitting underneath this, and we're quite serious about this, and our council, which Jackie is a part, constantly asks me whether we are achieving these things, but the key points are: WITT must have relevance for Māori. WITT students are embraced within the Taranaki Māori community. WITT is a place where language and culture of Taranaki mana whenua is endorsed and fostered to flourish. WITT is a place where Māori students are envisaged to graduate. WITT is a place where Māori can successfully obtain vocational skills and educational qualifications from level 1 to 7. Now, I think WITT is getting better at these things. We're on a journey, and we certainly haven't finished that journey, but I think we are learning, and I think we're getting a little better. And just to give you some examples of WITT's current practice, the Te Reo Taranaki Trust partnership I've mentioned. We're responding to the wider Taranaki iwi Māori Performing Arts partnership with local Taranaki kapahaka groups, one of which is going to the New Zealand finals in Rotorua early next year. We have several Maui pa Māori nursing scholarships within our nursing program, and so on and so forth. So there's some of the things that WITT is trying to achieve in a better way to serve all of our communities, and in particular our Māori community. So I think the second point that I'd like to make is our responsibility is to meet the needs of our communities, and you should tell us what your needs are, and you should tell us if we're not doing well. One of the things I did pick up today from Manukau, of course, is the art of not paying taxes. We'll give that a bit of thought. There are plenty of experts on that outside of WITT, I can tell you. What are the challenges? With respect to the point Kathy made, and I do acknowledge that, and I'm delighted to see a good level of PhD participation. Performance in schools is not good enough. Now, Peter Murahu, who you all know, wrote a very strong note about this not so long ago, about our kids failing in school. And in fact, he actually spoke of the schools failing our kids. 40% of young Maori males leave school without any qualification, and 30% of girls, Maori girls, leave secondary school without any qualification. Peter's article was a very powerful one. He took a bit of a hiding over that, Peter, as I remember. But the point was very well made, that surely our educational system can do better than this. So that's one of the challenges. performance in basic schooling, which enables them to progress into tertiary should they wish to do so. Many school leavers come to us, of course, wanting to come into tertiary, but are not equipped. They don't have the skills and they don't have the learning that enables them to meet our entry criteria. Remember that. Your children, your whakapuna, they must realise that if they wish to participate and contribute to the modern economy, they must take their education seriously. Of course, I think, and I think it was Kathy who said that your community is a very fragmented one. And in terms of the barriers looking forward, what I would certainly like to see is after redress and resources and the mana restored and the culture recognised and all those things, if they could be put in place as a more cohesive community that I can relate to, I think that would be really useful, and that the Maori community can act as one. Just as a small point of information, in some of their settlements, some of the groups are suggesting that they have some Fs, which is our word for funding for tertiary students as a part of their settlement, and that might be worthwhile storing up. And I suppose the other challenge to well-educated communities is globalisation, and how that can take our eye off the ball, and how that can offer opportunities outside of our area for many of our people. I think there's been some good progress. Remember, it's not many years ago that Naida Gladych frightened half the Pākehā in New Zealand by saying kia ora. That's only a few years ago. And what an amazing response there was to 2 little words of greeting. I want to tell a similar story. I'm a rugby fan. I had a number of years in Auckland. I supported the Blues. I've no idea why I'd support the Blues. I come to Taranaki, we have the Radfilly Shield, and that's where I don't think the Blues will ever have that opportunity again. And it was not many years ago that Henry Mohi, of course, sang the national anthem in Maori, and that scared the other half of the Pākehā population. And at that time I was working with the Human Rights Commission, and the next game at Eden Park I turned up with a whole lot of business card-sized national anthem. One side was Pākehā, one side was English, and the other side was Te Reo. And as we got close to the start of the game, I had several hundred of these, and I handed them out, and I asked people to pass them along and pass them up and down. Well, you probably aren't surprised by this, but probably a quarter of the people valued that and looked at it and nodded at me. About half didn't know what to do with it, frankly. They looked at it and they put it in their pocket or smiled at a friend, and they didn't acknowledge me at all. And the other quarter threw them on the ground. And you know, this is only 5 or 6 years ago. And when we want to get a sense of are we progressing, I think that's not a bad story. So what do we do now? Internationally now, we learn the words in the reo, we sing them both, and we acknowledge and applaud that as being part of being Kiwis. Just very finally, Taranaki Wealthy again. I'd say 3 things from my perspective, and you won't be surprised to hear me say this. It's all about these 3 things: think education, do education, and commit to lifelong learnings. I was recently I could talk all day on education. Someone should throw something at me if I've done my 10 minutes. But 2 little stories to finish with, perhaps. Someone throwing something?
Watch out for Gene.
I need a peppermint. Who's got it? No, it's okay. I was recently the guest speaker at the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Taranaki, and there are about 60 accountants there. And I left them with this challenge, really, that in 50 or 60 years' time, half of New Zealanders would identify as Maori. So how can we in 50 or 60 years' time ensure that when I look out over the sea of accountants, not one of whom was Maori, that in 50 or 60 years' time, half the people in the room would be Maori. And I think that to me is our challenge, and that to me is really important, because when my kids grow up and retire, they want lots of taxpayers and half of them have to be Maori, that's no doubt. Now just a very final story. I recently went to the final speech by Sir Mason Jury, and those of you who were there, I think, heard a very fine New Zealander make a very fine speech about New Zealand of the future. And his final comments were about looking ahead 50 years, having seen a revitalisation of the Maori economy, a renaissance of Maori language and Maori people, and that essentially he was saying in 2060 Maori are in charge and Pākehā are looking closely at their rights under the treaty. Kia ora tātou.